So in today's video, we're going to take a look at this loop. It's a guitar loop, but unfortunately the only loop I had really, plus a secondary loop. And it comes from a guitar library that I had. But how many times have you found a library loop that you like, but it doesn't have any support? It doesn't have a whole pack full of drums and bass and alternate loops that it's come from, but it's one sweet sounding loop and you wish you could make a song out of it. Well, today that's exactly what we're going to try to do. So let's listen to the original loops. There's two of them. Just a nice acoustic guitar. It has a nice chord change. So that's E flat, 120 beats per minute. It gives us that information. Now let's look at the next little one here. So that's a faster strum for the kind of the bridge or a little break section there. But that's all we have. Is it even possible to make a song out of just these two little loops? Well, we're going to take a look at what I've come up with so far. And then I'll break it down track by track. Let's set this up now. So this is the musical idea I'm working with from these two loops now. Alright, so that's the idea that has come from those original two loops. And so there's a lot more to work with here. But how did we get from these loops to all this information up here and all these tracks? So we'll take a look at that next. Alright, so we have our guitar loop, and to be able to create a song just from this one loop, we need to extract all the information, the chord changes, and we need to be able to manipulate it. And if though the guitar player was actually in front of us, and we could say, okay, now I want you to play an E flat, but I want you to chord change that into an F and then to a G and then back to the flat. And that is asking a lot from one loop, but there's a tool called Melodyne, which I've talked about before, that is really one of the world's best tools for taking one loop and creating many new loops from it. So we're on this track and we select the loop, and if you have Melodyne, it'll be seen up here in the extension, so in Cubase, so we can go pull that down and have Melodyne take a look at this loop. It's going to open up and read the loop and assess what it is and how to deal with it. So it's opened up here, and let's focus in on it. So let's get our interface first sorted. Now we can see every note plucked on the guitar, every chord, and now that we have it in this graphical form, we can start to see what we have and then manipulate it. We can see every note and every chord change. Up here, it gives us, on this line up here, Melodyne gives us a little example, and we can hear the chord, and then so it goes from an E flat or a D sharp to a C minor, and then, but these minor chord changes we're not interested in right now. We want to create more loops from this, but we know that the main chord change in this loop is from the E flat to a C minor. So let's just drag these away for now. And so as far as we see the loop right now, it's just going from that E flat to the C major up here on the chord indicators up here. So that means that if we have all this information and we have the chord indicators up here, we can create a new indicator and we can say we want to go from E flat to, say, an F and a G and then back to a C minor. So we can click here and create a new section here for a new chord change, and click again, and we can double click and we can change that now to the F, return. Now we have an F there, double, and we can say G, return. And now the chord indicators have changed, and the actual grid behind our notes, the white and light gray, has changed to indicate where the notes should be, but the notes haven't actually moved yet. And we could select them and just double click on the red part here, and it would automatically move them to the right notes for the chord, the new chord change F, and we could do the same thing here. But oftentimes it might stack some of the notes we don't want stacked on. We want to be able to determine exactly where these two plucks go, and this pluck of the guitar here on this string, where that goes. So I'm going to do this manually. So let's grab this note and drag it to its closest new F chord note here. And because we do have the grid set up to show us and guide us, we can. What I'm doing is moving the notes to the closest logical note for the F chord now. And I don't want to move anything unless I have to. I want to make the smallest moves possible to have the least amount of chance for artifacting and problems. So let's move that up there, and we'll leave this note where it is, and we'll take these notes. We have a choice now. We could go up or low. We could go to either one of these notes that are in that chord. And for now, maybe I'll leave that and decide a little later. Let's go to the bottom here, and we can see these notes here. So if I drag and select them, you can see that they're changed. They're not completely on that note. They weren't played perfectly on that note. So that string, I want to move them as one, but I don't want to double click on them and make them perfect. I want to keep that humanization in that chord there. So don't mess with anything you don't have to unless you indeed have to do something there. So let's just take this little note here, which might be an artifact we don't even need, and let's take this one here and move it up there. We'll decide what to do with these two little bits here later. But so right now, I think what I'm going to do is take these notes and move them down and not mess with how they were, their timing. So I'm not messing with their timing and how the notes were actually played. They're played a little bit out of the perfect note key, but that's the human element I want to keep. And for these notes here, I'm going to move them. I think I'll move them down, and we'll see how this sounds. And this one here, I'll move. Sometimes you have to switch to the right tool. So right now, it should have interpreted these notes now into an F chord. Let's play it from the beginning and see if we have artifacts or anything else we have to change. So not bad. There's a little bit of artifacts. Let's change it here, and let's change that there, and we might want to actually change that down there or just get rid of it. If you press on it and listen to it, you can hear what it is. So let's just move that down, and let's play it from up here. That's getting close. There's a few more artifacts and some harmonic frequencies that are a little bit off, but in the context of a song, we now have a chord change. So we could do a little bit more fiddling here, but just for the sake of moving quickly through this demo, let's take it from the beginning. So we have a nice semi-successful chord change that needs to be tuned a little bit, but you're getting the idea. Now it's going from the E flat to an F, and let's do the same thing for the G here now. So the same thing goes. We select the notes manually so that we have control, and we're going to move them to the closest G chord note now possible. We'll decide on this note here later which way to go, up or down. But for now, I'm thinking maybe down. I think we'll make that decision. And these notes can go down to the closest note in that chord. And we're going to move these up without messing with the timing again and the interpretation of that note. We're just leaving everything as close to natural as possible. This note can go there. We'll leave that one there because it's part of that chord. And same with this one, so it'll transition from the F to the G. And this note here can go up. So we check the notes, make sure they're all on the line that is in the G chord. Now we'll play it from the beginning. Not bad for a first try. A few artifacts in here, but we essentially have changed this loop into a new loop. So with a little bit, more time spent on this to get rid of the artifacting and checking for higher harmonic frequencies up here, and you can use the tools in Melodyne to find these ghost harmonics and change up. There are ways to fine-tune it even better. But for the sake of this demo, we've essentially created a new loop, our first new loop. And you can see up here that I did go from the E flat to the C, then to an F and a G, E flat, C, F, and a G. And I've changed this loop many times, and that's how I was able to get that full track out of that one loop. And one thing I should also mention is before you use Melodyne on your original loop, make a copy like I did here. So this is my original here, and this is the copied, changed Melodyne loop. So now that we've made the changes and we've essentially created a new chord change loop, we can go up here and we can say, all right, if we go to edit, we can say render in place. So now that will render the new loop out in audio. Now it's rendering it. It'll create a track underneath. And if we move this down, we can see our new, and if I solo it, we can play the actual new loop. That's the new chord change. So from the beginning again. So not bad for a first try. Just tune up the F and the G a little bit more, and you've essentially got a brand new loop. Then you can go back, make another copy, and make another loop. You may want to do different chord changes depending on what you want your song to be. But now that has become our, if we solo this separately now, we can just go back and listen to some of the chord changes that were originally done here. So. And in the context of the song, you add some drums. And some bass. And you end up with a track that is convincing enough to create a song out of. So in the next part, we're going to see how we came up with the bass to match this guitar loop. Alright, so what if we wanted to create a bass from that original guitar loop also? And another way you can extract the chords from that original guitar loop is using EzBass and how it can import audio and interpret it. Somewhat like what Melodyne does, but it's geared up all for bass. But it's another tool that you can use to make a bass line and original bass lines from a loop. So to do it, we would start with our original loop here, and let's just cue this up here on our track. And on this track, though, if we want to interpret it with EzBass, we have to make sure that we install under the insert for that track with the audio, we want to insert TuneTrack's little plugin called TuneTrack Audio Sender. So now Audio Sender is saying, okay, this audio input number 2 is what you need to send it to EzBass. So in EzBass, which is up here on this track, we simply go to Audio Tracker and we say we want to record from an audio from our DAW, right, on this track here. So we click that, and it's saying that everything's set up as soon as we switch this up to audio input 2, because this is saying that it's audio input 2 that the audio is on. So just switch this to audio input 2. That switches this to a green check mark. You can just unselect that now. And if you have it queued up, and just give a little extra after the recording here, and now it's going to record this into EzBass. So we just, like it says here, press play in Cubase. Now EzBass is recording it and analyzing it just like Melodyne did. And that's it. And now we can say that it did originally come from a guitar audio. And we can just turn these little extras on or off. We'll leave them on for now. We can delete them later. So now inside of EzBass, just like Melodyne interpreted it, we have the basic bass that would go with it. We are going to have to clean it up a little bit. And because if I haven't mentioned this earlier, this is an actually pretty complex audio loop with this strummed guitar. Guitars, it's a polyphonic audio source, so it's on the more difficult side for interpreting. But as just we've witnessed in Melodyne, we can also clean things up and make it sound better inside of EzBass. So let's do that now. So these are the raw notes inside of EzBass, and the mix is halfway between the original material and EzBass. We just want to hear what EzBass is going to make from this audio loop. So let's go back to the beginning. Let's follow the host, which is turned on. Just make sure that's turned on, and sometimes it takes a while. There it goes. Now we have a bass playing and we have some cleaning up to do because, as I said, it's a very complex polyphonic loop. So we're going to just give EzBass a little help here. But since we already know what the chord change is from an E flat to that C minor, let's just pull these down to the E and the E flat there. So we're just going to give it a little help. Easy to do. Bring it down and keep it simple. It's just a bass line. So, and here's our chord change here. So now we're going to just try to move the interface. Let's see. Keep forgetting where that bar is. Okay, there it is on the bottom. I want to drag it out so we see things a little clearer. And we know that there's a couple notes up there. So let's start by dragging these down. And we can decide where the chord change is going to be here. So these notes, we might leave that note up as just a kind of a transition into the new chord change. So that's our C right down there, and that's the C sharp and the C. So we're going to go to the C, and we're going to drag everything down to the C and see if that just gives us what we want. So we're basically cleaning up the interpretation into a simple chord change of just the bass going from the E flat to the C. And then we'll see how this interprets at the end. So let's just play it now. I like that transition there, kind of up and down. Okay, that's not bad for the first go. Check for any missing notes. We could copy and move this one over here, but I kind of like it missing a note there. It's kind of like a ghosted note. So that's not bad for our first pass on the bass, and now we've actually got a bass line for our acoustic guitar loop, and it's a good starting point. So once I've got the easy bass set up so that I've got the right chords to play, it's a matter of just linking them together, changing the chords, and coming up with something that fits the other new loops I have from a guitar track. Adding a little bit of drums. And you can see I didn't spend very much time on this bass. Could, be a lot better. But it's just the idea of, setting things up from the initial loop and getting your bass going. And you could take that a long ways, and you could also get into changing the grooves. Once you have the chord information for your bass, you can get into changing grooves, adding fills, getting all kinds of fancy stuff. And then get back into your bass and tailor the bass exactly how you want the actual sound. And then you could also, for the audio sends for that track, you could, or the inserts I should say, you could add anything from like any type of distortion from amplitude or any kind of great distortion effects or bass amps on there. So this is really just a starting point. It's once you have your basics of your chords, your chord changes, your tempo, your key, and some loops that you can change, and it's just a matter of then putting it together, piecing it together into a song that makes sense. You have your chord track to keep things simple. Then you can set up your chorus and your verses. So in the next little segment here, we're going to talk about the beautiful piano tracks that go on top of this using Band in the Box. So yes, so once you have all your information, you can input that information into Band in the Box, and you can leverage all the beautiful musical ideas in here. And it's basically like adding session players to your song idea and your chords. So input the tempo, which is 120 at time signature 4/4. The key I put in is C for right now, and I've turned off lead in and ending, and I just wanted to put in the chords that we've been using, so I used the chord track. Since the chord track was set up with information from the original guitar loop, I was able to import and put the chord changes into Band in the Box, which will all sync up on track at the beginning of the track here, or you could go right to bar number 1, and you can see how the bars in Band in the Box line up with the bars, and you'll switch to 2 and 3, and so these are synced, and so the chord changes will be synced. So now we have a little piano chord, on this track, and that's from Band in a Box. So I just went into Band in a Box and I said, okay, select, I want a real track. And I've shown how to do this in a few other videos, but I just went, I want a real track, selected that, and then picked a nice chording piano for this track here. And that chording piano is following the chords from our original acoustic guitar. And now the bass. And so I was able to go in and say, okay, how about a piano lead? So I went in again and said I want another real track, a piano lead, and that's what I did. And sometimes it's troublesome to get off of that selector there, but and so now I can solo the piano lead with the chord change. And if you add in the bass, and then you end up taking your song idea to a whole new level with the Band in a Box. And you know, there's no reason why you could try out guitars, banjos, accordions, strings, anything inside a Band in a Box will now conform to the chord changes that you have in your song. So let's take it from the beginning and listen to it one more time. So from here, you could literally take it any direction you want. You can change the chords if you don't like them. You can reinterpret what the verse and the choruses are. You really can take this anywhere you want to go once you have the basic setup of the tempo, the chords, time signature, the scale. So that's today's video, taking a simple guitar loop and turning it into a lot more than it was originally. And from there you can actually begin to see how you could create a song from this. Hope you enjoyed the video today. See you on the next one.